Hey, well, I'm Rama Blake, and I am calling the LIFAC meeting for January 12th, 2022 to order here. And I appreciate everybody who's here. We have, I think, current LIFAC members, Jim Dickinson, thank you for being here. Judy Olson, Charles Bailey, and Mike McKenzie, and myself. And this is going to be our final meeting for the old term. We will be handing over the reins to the new committee members come the February meeting. So I appreciate everybody being here. Going to ask for just a moment of silence, collect our thoughts, collect our very best for the next hour or hour and a half ahead of us. Thank you. We have two sets of minutes that were sent out, and the November minutes, I do believe, Charles, just at the last minute, you had an addition or a correction to suggest for the November minutes that it was kind of a group effort, but looks like they're still not quite complete, correct?
That's right. It's missing one of the agenda items, but I've tracked it down since we talked, and I'll be happy to write a paragraph about it to be inserted in the minutes. I don't think it needs to hold up approval. It's about in the November meeting, we had a discussion about the shore power study, which we'll talk about again today. And it was when Roland Middleton invited us to go talk with the county executive, and Todd Donovan talked about the county council, which had just the day before passed the updated climate action plan. So that's the gist of it. And I discovered Jim Dickinson also had some comments under that heading, and I'll wrap it all up and put it in.
Okay. Were there other additions or corrections to suggest that hopefully, like by tomorrow, we should be able to approve the final version? Were there other suggestions to add to those November minutes? Okay, if you all would check your email tomorrow for the final version of November minutes, and we can approve them then via email, hopefully, and get them sent in. Any comments on the December minutes? Mike.
Yeah, I'm unmuting here. I had one that I got some help from Rich Hudson on today. There is no Matt who has quit the ferry crew. So that was just I don't know how it got in there, but there was Kent Dixon, it says, is that correct, Rich? Kent Dixon has moved off the crew. But
yes,
the minutes said Matt somebody, and there is no Matt. So
okay.
I can scratch that.
So with that correction, any other suggestions for updating the draft of the December minutes that were sent out?
Oh, I have a question. Rich, I thought that Josh Thomason was also on the temporary crew, but maybe he's in a different category.
he is an on-call crew member. You're correct, Charles. Josh
Okay.
Thomason. That's correct.
Can we add him then to that list?
Yep.
Okay.
And the December minutes were, well, Charles, that's in your court again, right? Can you update that and resend it along with the November update that you're doing?
Sure.
Okay, so all the comments have been submitted here. We will hopefully approve those via email tomorrow with those two edits that we've discussed here tonight. In agreement? Thank you.
Yes.
Internal business. So in the past, we've talked about recruiting great committee members for the next year. And boy, I think we went above and beyond. I'm very, very excited about the fact that, let's see, we have attending this, we have Todd and Reed and well, Chris re-upped. I'm just so excited. And Judy re-upped. So I'm wondering if we could just take, if you can take 1 minute to tell us a little about yourself. I don't see Rich Fry on here. He also was appointed, but I'm gonna ask Todd to start. Just tell us a minute about yourself and welcome aboard.
Thank you. So my name's Todd Lagasty. I've lived in Whatcom County a little over 21 years now. I moved here for the job. I got a job as a firefighter for the city of Bellingham back in September of 2000. And I moved here then from Corvallis, Oregon. And I grew up in Corvallis. I went into the Navy from Corvallis. I was a nuclear operator on submarines in the United States Navy. And that's what I did before becoming a firefighter. And in my free time, I used to play outside a lot, rock climbing, mountain biking. And then I got a little older and it started to hurt a little more. So I got involved in some union stuff and then also some local politics I've been involved in. And that's a little bit what led me to the Lummi Island Ferry Advisory Committee. So here I am.
Thank you. Thank you for submitting your name and thank you for volunteering to work with us. It's not always been easy to get really great off-island people, and I'm excited to see what you can bring to the committee. Reed Johnson.
Yes. Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. My name's Reed. I live on Lummi Island with my wife, Katie, who works for the Heritage Trust on the island. We have 2 kids. We've been on island for 6 years now, and I've worked for the Willows Inn. I'm about to start my 10th year at the Willows Inn. Moved up here from Texas 10 years ago, and then my wife went to grad school at Western, and then once she finished that, we moved down out to the island. So I think excited to take a proactive approach in helping the community, and the Willows brings people to the island, and we bring guests and staff, and also for my own personal life and the Heritage Trust and everything. It's a very important aspect of our life. So looking forward to helping in any way that I can.
Reed, on the record, I wore this shirt just for you tonight.
Oh, I wore this just for you. That's a national
knew-
championship shirt right
Yeah,
there.
I knew you would, and you one up to me.
Thank
I'm
you.
a very proud
A&M
Baylor
and-
Bear.
Texas A&M and Baylor are big rivals for those of you who don't follow college sports.
Well, and I'm gonna just a shout out to Chris Colburn. Thank you for reapplying. Chris is probably in some ways one of the longest serving members in the past of LIFAC. So talk about a sense of history. Chris, do you want to just introduce yourself to others just for a minute here?
Sure. Hi. Just since the guys are showing their t-shirts, I'll show mine. It's the Handy Guide to Pacific Salmon. Anyway, Todd, it's kind of funny that the 2 off-island members have Oregon roots. I'm from Portland originally, but I sort of moved my way north to Tacoma and then up here, and been here since 94. Yeah, I'm not sure I ever imagined in 2012 that I'd be here in 2022 with this committee. But anyway, there is a sense of history. I want to remember everybody that I've had the good fortune to work with and learn from on the committee over those years. Not all are still alive. Of course, there have been people pass through and move on to other things, but there's been so much good community work, and I just want to be part of carrying that forward. And we've still got to get a new vessel in service, and that's a long process. And I guess that's kind of what brought me back is I don't think I'm going to be able to relax about this involvement until that's, commissioned and in service. I think we've got a lot still to do there. We've got a lot to do supporting Rich and Public Works in keeping the chief safe and reliable until we have a new vessel working. The chief is a noble and old hand in this world, but it's time. It's past time for the chief to move along. And I guess then from there, we have a big bit of work to do in finding the path to electrification for the ferry that moves sooner rather than later for the goals of the county and for the whole county. So I guess that's all really. It's so great to be part of a new phase, and I guess that's it.
It is.
Thanks, Rima.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome back, Chris. And Chris is not sharing with others that he has a transportation background with WTA, and that has really informed some of our thoughts and decisions and just the greater, the greater world in which our ferry operates within. So good to have you back, Chris. And Judy Olson just re-upped again. Thank you. Thank you. Judy, you want to say a word or two?
Oh, I don't know if I really have anything to say, except welcome to the new members. And thank you to all of the folks that are on the call tonight who also applied. And it was really a treat, I guess, to have more applicants than positions. But welcome to the folks who made it on. And I look forward to working with you and getting this done. It's really why I'm here, is to help to see this get done. So,
absolutely. Okay, welcome back, Judy. I'm glad. Yeah, you're great. And I see on the call, we also have Bill Sager and Tom Philpott, who also put in applications. And I appreciate the fact that it's been great. I tried to reach out to everybody who had applied, but I appreciate your involvement, and stay involved because we have work to do. So thank you. Thank you for that. Next agenda item is hybrid versus in-person formats for the next meeting. My update to share is that there is an informal agreement at this point to that LICA, the Lummi Island Community Association, would pay the Grange for us to meet in a hybrid format at the Grange, a $15 an hour rental fee. And that is possible. Based on this latest surge, I did not even consider trying to make that happen here in January, but as we hand over, to the new board, I know that both Jim and Mike have been wanting to get back to in-person meetings. And I just want to say, it sounds to me like there is the groundwork for that to happen. And your contacts would be Judy Thomas for the Grange and Greg Hall for LICA. Yeah. So there's.
All right, could you say that name again?
Greg Hall.
Greg Hall. Yeah, thank you. So the groundwork has been laid, and if And Mary, I think you indicated you could probably help with a hybrid setup at the Grange if like LIFAC wants to move to that format going forward. So it's an option, and is there any indication that we ought to do something at this January meeting in that? Is there an action step between now and then? Or I'm inclined to say you all should address it in your February meeting and see, based on how COVID is going, how you want to go forward. That's my suggestion. Any thoughts, comments?
Yes, I think we ought to go forward. It from what my studies of the latest variant is, it will very likely be pretty well played out by then. And we have some serious work to do here. Some of the things I'm going to talk about today, but it's really hard to do it on this way. And I'm not a computer genius that can put things online and draw circles and arrows and things like what we really need to do in this, and highlight different things and ask different questions and that. I think the sooner we get back at least where we can do that, the better off we are.
Well, Jim, would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
Yes, I would.
Okay. What would you do?
That if possible, we have a hybrid meeting starting in January of, wait a minute, no, this is February of 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'm not going to be on LIFAC, as you all know, so I probably should abstain. I think that making a judgment about the course of the epidemic and making a decision 30 days into the future may be a little bit pushing it, but it's up to you guys.
Yeah,
If it were me, I would not do it.
Jim?
we could add a friendly amendment to this, that if things change within a week of the meeting, we can go back to this. I don't know how you write that.
Well, Jim, I think that we're going to have to make a call on it a week or two before the next meeting. And I suppose that we can do that via the email communication and just send out a link to the participants indicating.
I have no problem with that.
I agree with Charles. I just don't think that any of us know.
I do have something to add briefly.
Yes, Rich.
Yesterday, the executive put out a recommendation for us in Whatcom County to go to level 1, which means from now until the 28th of this month, there's, all the public works employees that can work from home are all going home. Also, there's all the county doors are locked. There's no over-the-counter services at this time. Again, the minimum of that will be the 28th. So depending on what happens next month, you all may be able to go to the Grange, but I may not be able to attend in person. So,
Chris?
I just wonder if it would be more sensible and careful to say we want to aim for the March meeting to be in the hybrid format at the Grange. Especially with what Rich has just said, I feel kind of like what Jim expressed, that I think in person, at least making that possible is really useful and valuable. But if people are going to feel vulnerable, and I don't feel very safe predicting what's going to happen with this in 30 days. So that would be my only suggestion. I want to get there, but if I'm not sure that I will be able to come out there in February if this is still going strong, but I really want to.
Okay, other
Oh,
discussion
question.
points?
Yeah, I have a question on, can somebody define what they see as a hybrid meeting with what that would look like for providing the information online that's being discussed or presented in the in-person component? And then how the voting, if there is any voting, what that would look like? Can somebody define that?
Good question, Jim.
Well, the way we've been voting and even in the open meetings is pretty much on the record. Whereas in a hybrid meeting and some people will be sitting down with their, I guess, holding their hand up, and other ones, yes or no, and the other ones would be doing the same on the TV. I don't think that's any different. Now, that would be my opinion of what would happen. I can't see any other way. I've been attending LIFAC meetings since it's been LIFAC, and before that with the Ferry Task Force and the LICA meetings and the charrette meetings and all those. Pretty much that's the way they've all gone.
Yes. Todd, and welcome, Todd Donovan.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed the first agenda thing. So yeah, the other Todd, right? This is gonna be confusing now, Todd. So hybrid meetings, I mean, my assumption is, and because we're trying to figure out how to do this as council, you'd have some people present physically there and the technology support to have people simultaneously zooming in and you'd be able to coordinate votes and such like that. So that's my understanding. So I guess for my do you have, and we're not talking about the fire hall, we're talking about the Grange. Is there the tech capacity to be able to do that kind of hybrid thing where if people can't get to the island, the off island folks, we could zoom in and you could see us or at least hear us? That's because that's my sense of hybrid.
Yes, and Mary, you would
Yeah.
have the answer?
Yeah, what we would have to do is we'd have to set up a camera and a TV. Jim, for presenting documents and stuff like that, it would be very difficult to just have taking a picture of a paper document or a paper picture or something like that. I think that might be a little not real equal for the people that are doing the on the other end that are not present. I think it would be better if I could have just a copy of what you're going to do. I don't care if it's hand drawn. If I had that, I can post it on the screen so that everybody can equally see it. And for myself, like with the surging COVID right now, I would have to be present probably at the Grange. I would want everybody to be like super masked and safe social distancing, because I live with someone who is immune compromised. So that's,
Thank you.
I'm willing to do it.
Well, and Mary, we are on Mary's Zoom account now. For you new people, there is no budget for what we do, and we have relied on volunteers at every level. So my shout out to Mary for everything you have done and been able to make happen here through COVID. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to call a question. Can we,
May I change the change the motion? I'd like to change the motion to do whatever the county does at that point as far as individual meetings, such as like Rich talks about with the lockdowns in the courthouse and that. If they're doing that, we just follow that procedure. And then once that is open, we're open.
So we're talking about a hybrid meeting, but that would be triggered by what the county policy is on that future meeting date. Is that correct, Jim?
That's correct. We are a county board, so I guess we have to do that.
So I'm just going to speak up and say that I do agree with Chris that we should just kick this down the road one more month and plan on our February meeting being on this platform. And at that time, see what we're looking at. I think that it's going to take some preparation to set up a hybrid meeting at the Grange and some level of skill on Mary's part, etc., to pull that off. So I also feel like we'll need some time to work through that. So I would propose that we continue on this platform for the February meeting. And also, Jim, if you have any documents that you would like to bring me, if you only have a handful, I would be more than happy to scan them and share them on this screen in these meetings. And it's actually a better way for everyone to be able to look at the same document at the same time versus having a physical piece of paper that, I don't know, perhaps people are leaning over each other's shoulders trying to get eyeballs on. So
The problem I see with that is they're static. Often things that I would like to, and I've been holding some of these for quite a while, are interactive, where actually there is attention brought to, let's say, a structural component or attention brought to something else. And you can't really do that unless, the only other way I've ever seen this done was there's this English doctor who goes over COVID statistics, and he has basically I think it's a projector of some kind. He sits there and does circles and arrows and points and things on it, which I don't know how to do. But we do need some interactivity, because other than that, people do not understand some of the technical aspects.
Thank you. Okay, are we ready to, oh, Mike, yes, you have a comment.
No, for the minutes, this discussion has gone a lot of places. We need a clearly stated motion. When, etc. Because Jim, you changed it a bit. So state the motion that we're going to vote for.
if it's appropriate, I would make a motion that we hold our February meeting on Zoom.
Well, we have Jim's motion on the floor, though.
I know. Yeah, that's
Okay.
why I asked if it was appropriate.
I would like my motion to say that we follow the county dictates on meetings and interpersonal and personal contact, which I think is appropriate here.
So the motion on the floor,
Fine.
pardon?
At this time.
The motion on the floor is to follow the protocols set forward by the county at the time in terms of public health and meetings, and if possible, meet in a hybrid fashion at the Grange for our February meeting, but follow the county's lead by a week before, you said?
Yes, that should be enough.
Have I restated the motion correctly here then? Okay.
I think that's better than I said it.
And Mike, you got that for the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. So all in favor of, I'm going to call roll here. Well, actually, I am not going to vote since I won't necessarily be here. Mike, are you yes or no on that?
The way it's stated right now, I'm a no.
Okay. And Charles, you won't be here.
I'm going to abstain.
Yes. And I am going to, actually, this is out of the ordinary, and I guess I shouldn't. This is an official county thing, but Judy, you are for or against that?
I guess I'm against it. Honestly, it's a little complicated to me right now, and I'd rather just keep it simple for February and stand with the motion that I made, even though there is a motion on the floor.
Okay. And Jim, obviously you are in favor of.
I'm in favor.
I'm going to say it is not Carrie. Judy, did you want to put forth another motion?
Well, I suppose that I could add to the motion that for February, we keep the meeting on Zoom, and that we also agree to abide by the county dictated mandates for meeting in public during COVID, that we follow whatever protocols they set forth. So we could roll that into one amendment and then vote whether to keep the February meeting online.
Is there a second for Judy's motion, which is to meet via Zoom in February and for March, follow whatever the county guideline is at that point in time?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? I'm going to call roll, Mike. So
For it, yes.
yes, okay. And who do we have here?
Yes.
Judy is yes, then,
Yes.
since you made the motion. And Jim, would you vote in favor of that?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. I would say that motion carries amongst those who will be carrying on. So I feel comfortable with that. Thank you. Thank you for a healthy discussion. I'm going to move on to agenda item number 3. Oh, no, actually, before I do that, welcome Rich Fry, that we all introduced ourselves earlier. The new members did, but I wanted to say thank you for being here. I'm going to back up. You want to take just 1 minute to introduce yourself?
Probably take less than a minute. We were gone all day today and just got back home and saw this email. So I'm vastly unprepared, but it is nice to see all of you attendees at these things. And with that, I look forward to seeing more of you guys in the future.
Well, thank you. Thank you for putting yourself out there, and congratulations on being on board. You had good support, so thank you. Going to go back then to point 3 on internal business coordination of the listserv updates. And Judy, do you have an update on that? What's happened? And just let me reframe it. In the past, we've been using a listserv for our announcements list and our Google Groups list. And Nancy Ging, our past president, has maintained that, but it is retiring. So Judy, you have an update on how we need to go forward with that?
Yeah, my only update really is that I did look into that, and what I really need to do is to speak to Nancy and have her instruct me in how to take that away from her and give that to somebody else, make someone else the administrator as opposed to her. And I have not been able to figure out how to get in touch with her. So if anybody on this committee knows how to do that, please let me know. That's the update. That's as much as I have.
And I'm going to go out on a limb, since we have new people, new expertise, new skill sets involved. Sorry. Is there somebody techie enough on board here who should raise their hand and make Judy aware of them? It's a matter of managing a Google Groups, 2 Google Groups lists. Bill Sager. Okay, well, if you could help Judy come to a resolution on this issue. It is really a timely thing to wrestle to the ground, because the Google Groups list will change, especially with the officer changes. And if we do have others here on the list that want to automatically get notified of any of our meetings, that is, you just need to get your name on the announcements list. But I have not personally been very good at doing that. So thank you for reaching out to Judy after the meeting. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and again, if anybody here does have a way to contact Nancy Ging, please let me know.
Nope, good point. Okay. Moving on to old business. Rich Hudson, do you have an update for us?
Yeah, you bet. So first, I'd like to say hello to the new members of LIFAC and introduce myself. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Rich Hudson. I'm the quote unquote senior master of the Whatcom Chief, and I'm in charge of ferry operations, which includes the crew, the general crew, ferry coordinator, as well as managing sort of the interdepartment resources that we utilize for maintenance of the vessel, for taking care of our docks, coordinating, getting all aspects of dry dock and all of that sort of business. So anyway, that's who I am. Public Works asks me to attend these meetings and give these updates and also give input on new ferry design and all of that business as well. So that's who I am. That's my function at these meetings. So the report I have is that fortunately, over all the really horrible weather we've had over the last month, we didn't experience on the Whatcom Chief any total suspensions of service. We definitely experienced some slowing down of service, as several mornings there was up to like 6 inches of snow and compacted ice on the deck of the Chief, which, as you can imagine, takes some time to remove to allow for safe travel. So that was good. The one thing we did experience is when it was 11 degrees below zero with the wind chill, we have to use this, or we're obligated to use this sort of vegetable oil that's for overwater hydraulic use to run the hydraulic rams and cylinders that operate the apron on our terminals. And it just didn't hold up very well in minus 11 degree wind chill, and got really slow and basically froze at one point in time, and we were unable to use the aprons for a short time. But at any rate, that's really the only real tough thing that we experienced during all that terrible weather. Would like to announce that we are on track for our May dry dock period. Even though it's not a dry dock, it's going to be a pierside maintenance this year. And just to let you guys know what goes into even getting that sort of work done with our public process, it's kind of interesting. So we quickly realized when the Coast Guard mandated us to have those midship hatches replaced by June 1st that we didn't have a whole lot of time. So real briefly, I'm just going to run down to you what that sort of looked like. Starting January 6th, we had Elliott Bay ship check. That's where I get together with our consultants, Elliott Bay, and go over all the wishes that we have, that Tri-County Marine has, as they're the ones that maintain our engines, and start putting together this list of items for us to tackle. And so January 6th, we met with Elliott Bay. January 20th, Elliott Bay recommendations and estimate due back to myself and Elizabeth. January 22nd, Elliott Bay recommendations reviewed. January 24th, pre-bid, which is the final draft to be done, which is actually, we bumped that up. We just finished that today, so we're ahead of schedule. We submit to finance tomorrow. Finance starts advertising. We're going to have a pre-bid meeting with all the vendors. So anybody that wants to bid on the work, we're going to do that February 9th. Then February 15th, there's a ship clarifying time for questions to be submitted by all those shipyards. So the shipyards, they look at the bid, they come to the pre-bid meeting, and then they've got a week to ask us any clarifying questions. Public Works responds by February 22nd. March 1st, bids are opened. March 8th, bids entered into the council's Granicus. Bid results to the council on March 22nd. March 23rd, received verbal approval from contract from successful bidder. March 23rd, contract entered. April 12th, contract intro to council. Council approves contract, ideally. April 13th, contracts to successful bidder for DocuSign. April 20th, write and submit PO for finance. And then on May 6th, dry dock begins. So that's the timeline. And if this is needed for the minutes, Charles, I can certainly get a copy of this to you if you'd like.
Yeah, Mike is doing the minutes, so
Oh,
get it from him.
Sorry, Charles, that's right. You're leaving us. All right, Mike, I'll get you a copy of this if you like. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting how much needs to get done in such a short amount of time, just in paperwork to get this stuff
And I
done.
appreciate that. Rich, do you mind, just since we have some new people here, reiterating the proposed dry dock dates, just so everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So our maintenance period this year for the Whatcom Chief, which means the Whatcom Chief will be out of service and will be replaced temporarily for a 2-week period by a passenger vessel, is from May 6th to May 21st. So in other words, the morning of May 6th, the Whatcom Chief will be gone, and the Whatcom Chief will return evening of or late afternoon, May 21st.
But it's only going as far as Bellingham, right? Or where is it going?
It's going to go to whoever.
Or wherever, sorry, whoever gets the bid, right?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
So that's just a quick breakdown of that business. And then,
Sorry,
Yeah,
Rich, just to interrupt real quick, is that in lieu of a September dry dock?
yeah, we are not doing a September dry dock this year. The Coast Guard mandated us to crop out some hatches, which if I hadn't have done this negotiation with the Coast Guard, they could have kept us up on dock for an additional 2 weeks while we cropped out and replaced those hatches. So that was the sort of bargain that was struck with the Coast Guard, is that they said, all right, we get that you got to get back to your community. There's no way we're letting you go for an entire year with the hatches in this state. So we had to generate sort of a temporary repair and observation plan for those hatches, and then also agree to have them cropped out and renewed by June 1st.
And just to carry that forward a little bit more, Rich, for the newer folks here, then the plan for the following year is to continue with dry dock in May.
Yeah, that's correct.
And
Yep.
but the next one, 2023, will be a full dry dock and not what you're calling a pier side dry dock.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Judy.
Todd,
Ooh, Rich, I really appreciate you laying out the public process that you have to deal with just to get to something in dry dock in regular times. And there's like decades of red tape that have been added for good reasons, probably. But the vegetable oil stuff that was freezing, is that a federal, state, or local requirement to be using that stuff?
It's an EPA requirement, and it's actually, I should back up a little bit. It's less of a requirement, and it's more of a recommendation, a strong recommendation. Reason being is that if any of that oil leaks into the water, then we're on the hook for a big cleanup and a lot of expense. So that's the reason, Todd. That's a great question.
Yeah, I no pun intended, really appreciate you navigating this stuff. So.
Yeah, sure.
thank you.
Thank you.
And Jim,
Two things. One, Todd, to answer your question, a lot of the construction equipment now is using vegetable oil. In fact, we use in ours hydraulic fluid, and so it's pretty much everywhere. The other thing, Rich, are we going to get to a point in which that we can have the Whatcom Chief dockside done in Bellingham?
Yeah, Jim, that's a great question. I mean, that is definitely something Elizabeth and I are working towards. The short answer is yes. We didn't really have the time, and so short answer is yes. Also, we reached out to the different shipyards and asked if they'd be actually interested in sort of running that contract for us here locally in Bellingham, and we got a positive response out of them. There just wasn't enough time with the timeline that I just gave you to really get into the bones of what that would look like and how to really narrow it down. But yeah, that is something that Elizabeth would like to do. If we do it, it won't be this year's maintenance period. it can't be the following years because that's when the Coast Guard, our hull inspection is due, which means we have to come up on dock. But it could very well be in 2024.
Rema?
Yes. Oh, yes, Charles.
Rich, thank you for this report. I think that for many of the relatively new people to this subject, I'd like to go back to our discussions of the last several months, in which I characterize it as elder care for an aging ferry. And in our last meeting, you talked about methods of testing the engine oil. But what I meant by that was simply how to look ahead a bit further so that we can head off the kinds of things that hit us right after the ferry came out of dry dock this last year. So could you update us? And I would say again, for the newcomers, read the minutes of since October, and you will get another very good detailed report and idea of this subject. But Rich, go ahead. Tell us what your look ahead is like. What are we going to be able to head off to maintain service schedule?
Good question, Charles, and I'm happy to recap. So as far as the elder care of that vessel, what we've done in the last, I don't know, 5 to 6 years is we've basically replaced pretty much every major system on that boat. Because as we all know, a ferry boat, especially, or any boat, it's really, it's a hull, and everything that goes in it is just equipment that goes in it. So we've taken most of all the old equipment out, and we've replaced it all with new equipment, so it can continue to provide the service that we all rely on. So to answer Charles' question, because of updating some of these systems, putting new technologically advanced, say, steering system, for example, which really plagued us in this last year. We put it in this older boat. We were told by all the experts we rely on in the marine industry that this is really great. It's going to be fine. It's going to improve service and uptime and all of that. And what happened is really the opposite was quite true. So those unexpected service outages due to rudder feedback units, which they're part of our steering gear, because of those failures. That's really just a growing pain with replacing all that new stuff. This year, what we've realized is, one, we're going to change the rudder feedback units out every year, and that will alleviate that problem on that end of things. As far as the engines go, that was just, according to the owner of Tri-County Marine, who is our area's CAT representative, just said that was just kind of a fluke and didn't really have much of an explanation for it. So at any rate, Charles, moving forward, all the major systems of the boat have been replaced. Some of those new systems, actually only one component on one of those systems has really plagued us and is to blame for 90% of those breakdowns. And we've generated a plan to deal with it, which is, one, we're going to start replacing those rudder feedback units every year. And secondly, we're also going to put forth a plan to the Marine Safety Center in Washington, D.C. to allow us to do a non-follow-up backup steering system. So if our primary steering system fails, we'll have a backup system that's basically a flip of a switch, and we'll be able to continue service. So I hope that answers some questions.
What about the oil testing of oil that you mentioned? Are you going to start that, or is
we will start that at some point? Everything is so new and fresh right now. Mm-hmm. We're going to get through our next maintenance period, and we're going to have our mechanics look at the Tri-County Marine. They're going to be doing another tune-up this year, which is a injector replacement and tune-up on all the engines, which is the two main engines and also our main generator and our auxiliary generator. And at that point in time, we'll probably start. We'll start doing the oil analysis.
And that would be when, in 2022 or
later this year?
Later this year, so in the fall of 22. My final question is that we also talked about when is the never exceed date, as it were, or use by date for the Whatcom chief, particularly in terms of the engine. And in the last meeting, we ended up a little bit, or at least I ended up a little bit confused, because I had been working with the understanding that you had one more set of engines, and that probably 2029 was roughly, after that point, you would have to really do major structural, take a can opener to the boat in order to put in new engines that were up to EPA standards. But since then, you had, I think we left it that you were going to come back and tell us more about it. Are you prepared to do that now, or can you tell us more?
No, I mean, it's to answer your question, that's a moving target. So at that time, when we generated that prediction, it was based on the information we had currently available. Mm-hmm. So every time we maintain the engines and we do a tune-up and replace injectors, we ask the cat mechanics, hey, what's your feeling? Look at the hours. You're digging around in the engines. What's your prediction? How are we looking? And they typically say, you know what? It's not time yet. These things have more life left in them. Mm-hmm. And so that continually kind of pushes that critical date out of when we'd have to embrace that tier 3 technology. However, we do have another set of rebuilt engines at the county shop that we can put in after these blocks and these engines have run their course. And it's really not as bad as it sounds. We've done it many times before. When the engines sort of run through their useful life, we cut holes in the deck. The chief is made to do that. We tear them out. We drop new engines in, bolt them down, hook everything up, and we're off and running. So it's not something that we're unfamiliar with.
Good. Well, I'm making this point also for new members, because I think it's important as the county moves towards a new ferry that we have a sense of the continuing, integrity of the chief. So I think between these look aheads and what you just said about the engines should be very reassuring. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes. Rich, more? Other issues?
Sure. Hold on 1 second here. Let's see. Sorry, you guys. Bid schedule and stuff, I covered that. So just wanted to touch briefly, because I think as we were discussing earlier, I think this recent sort of surge in COVID is on all of our minds. And I just wanted to let everybody know that the Whatcom Chief crew is still being very mindful of everything they should be doing. The new county directive that came out from the executive yesterday is not going to affect our service at this time. We're going to keep the same schedule. I would just ask or just remind everybody of the obligation when you come on the boat, which is, if you're exchanging fares, even if you're in your vehicle, to get your mask on when you're having that interaction with our pursers and the folks who are collecting money. And then also, please remember to bring your own mask, especially if you're walking on and sitting in one of the cabins. And just wanted to just mention that on behalf of, I think, the community and also the safety of the crew. Because of the new guidelines that I'm obligated to follow for everybody's well-being, it could get difficult if we had a case of COVID run through the ferry crew. It used to be if you had a symptom or two and you could explain your symptoms either with a doctor's note or saying that you have allergies, you could come to work with a mask. Now, if you've got even one symptom, you can't come to work for 5 days, no matter what. Then you can test, and if you test negative and still have symptoms, you can come back. So it's something that I'm really wishing we're all going to be mindful about.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's really all I have at this time for you guys, other than things are going and we haven't experienced any unexpected mechanical failures on the chief for any reasons of steering related or engine related issues. So I'm feeling good about that.
Great. We're very grateful. Okay.
Are you going, I don't see Roland is here, or is he? Are you going to talk about the status of fundraising for the new boat, the crab application and so forth? Or are we more or less up to date on that?
You guys are up to date on all of that business. Roland got in touch with me through our assistant director right before the meeting and said he was unable to attend. He's been dealing with, not only the last flood, a snowstorm, and now this current flooding situation. There was also, which I'm sure you're all aware of, a fatality that was the result of snow removal with a county plow. So, loss of life, that's just, it's a terrible thing. And it also creates a lot of work as well. And so anyway, he was not able to join us this evening. He did want to pass along to everyone that everything is on track. If there's a dollar bill out there somewhere, Roland's pushing the rock over to find it for a new ferry, and he sends his best.
And I am hoping that you will follow up, or we can follow up, that he was suggesting at one point that it would be appropriate to do some letter writing in terms of supporting the new funding initiatives that we're pushing forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I will make a note of that, Rayma, and we'll respond tomorrow. But I won't be responding to you, will I? Will I be? Who am I going to be responding?
No, we're here
till
January. We're here till January 31st. That's
okay. All right.
the handoff date. So that'd be
Right
great.
on.
Okay.
I'll get that answered for you and back with you tomorrow, Rayma.
Right, and we think that Sharon Shoemake is on the job, but we don't know what else is required in terms of letter writing. So if he could just take a moment and maybe just shoot us all an email, what we and maybe everyone on this meeting can do to write our legislators. The issue is to make sure that we get the $10 million crab grant, which is a really critical stepping stone to the federal raise grant application in June.
Thank you. And I am going to skip around on the agenda just one bit. Is there an update on the local weather station before we go to the emergency planning update?
Yeah, there's really good news on that front, actually. So Northwest Clean Air, who I believe Todd Donovan sits on that board as well, but they agreed to reimburse Whatcom County Public Works for up to a $10,000 weather station. So Whatcom County Public Works is committed to providing the space, access, the power, and all of that needed to operate the weather station. At this time, what I'm being directed at is that Whatcom County Public Works does not want to be responsible for the $850 yearly service and maintenance fee, which is really something that comes with the contract and something you got to do because it requires some IT support from the company, as well as like these sort of health and wellness checks they do on the equipment. So that's where I'm at right now. I spoke with Mike McKenzie earlier today. Mike and I are both going to get out and start beating the bushes a little bit and see if we can't find someone who is willing to provide that $850 a month for the service contract.
It's $850. How much a month?
Sorry, a year. I'm sorry, $850 a year.
Okay.
Terribly sorry about that.
All right.
Hey, Mike, sounds like a LIFAC grant request to me.
That's okay. What I said.
I'm sorry, I see a raised hand for.
Yeah, I tried to go there for this year, and they will only issue grants to island nonprofits. The county doesn't qualify.
Okay. And I'm sorry, there's a hand up for MJ, but is this something that can wait until the open session, please? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to move on to our agenda item, the emergency planning update. And I think that's why Chris was going to Are you going to be showing this, or I am looking forward to hearing what's the latest in terms of the public dock emergency planning outage project.
Yeah, Raymond, I would love to do that. Can I share screen?
Whatever Mary says, Mary gets here. And I mean, just so everybody knows, we are heavily indebted to Mary Ross for sharing her Zoom account most of these months. So thank you.
Chris report.
And can you introduce Chris?
Yes, well, Chris, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but Chris is one of our favorite Lummi Island firefighters and has volunteer extraordinaire on the island and has been helping with ferry outage transport issues in the past. And we're trying to come up with a better idea now. So Chris, Chris Emmer, thank you very much for being with us and sharing an update with us.
Thanks, Rama. Yeah, so I just want to make sure everybody knows I am not representing Whatcom County Fire Department District 11, even though that's what the screen says. It just so happens that Nick and I have been working today here at the fire hall, and this is where we wound up having to do this presentation. Nick was going to do the PowerPoint, but his computer died, so I'm doing it now. So this is an update to you guys. I know we've talked a little bit here and there. There's been a ton of ideas. I'm just going to get right into it, go through it quickly, and then give you an opportunity to ask me questions. So because of the increased frequency of ferry outages, at least from many of our perspective, it really highlighted the lack of safe boat access to get people on and off the island with small boats. And LIFAC was asked as a result of that to form an advisory committee to research options. We wanted to find a way how to make it easier during these times where we have these outages. Whatcom County Parks and Recreation, in response to my questions, explained that there were opportunities available through them at their existing park here on the island, which is located right in front of the Beach Store Cafe. And there's links to all of these things for those of you that aren't familiar with our island and the layout, with pictures and all of this on ourlummiisland.org. You can find that later, and I'll explain it again. But they explained that there may be opportunities for funding of the project. Even Parks Department has monies available, and they suggested 7 steps in particular of how to proceed and given us a bunch of information on how to make this happen. So that's how we're pursuing it as this committee. We looked at a bunch of different access points on the island. I would like to think exhaustively, but somebody else may have another idea, let me know. But the ferry terminal basically was a no-go zone. Rich, you feel free to jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but basically because of all the strings attached and all the requirements, that's just not an option to use the ferry terminal in any way for public boat access. Asian Reserve being private at this point, in the sense of not having any dock facility nor any plans to do it in the future. And the distance, Scenic Estates, once again, a private area. The docks come out in the wintertime, of course. Village Point Marina, private once again, way too far of a run around the island to really be practical. Sunset Beach, Isle Air Beach, all of these private beach accesses are for the most part too far away. And obviously you see the picture there of our outage in July, and where I was able to transport a lot of people back and forth, and people had to scurry up and down these rocks. We had ferry service personnel helping out, and everybody pitched in like they always do on the island. It was wonderful, but not ideal for really getting people moved on and off island. I looking on this list of people who were here, a lot of you rode that boat that day, so you know what I'm talking about. The goals for this project ultimately are this. We want to establish a public dock, not just an emergency use dock. And Richie, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the future ferry terminal, the county has said, hey, yeah, we do want to provide something that is for emergency use only. How that exactly looks would be determined later on, but the Bellingham fireboat, for example, could come and tie up to it, or other emergency vessels designated by the county or the powers that be. And so they're on board understanding that need, but that's a ways out, right? So we're looking for something more soon, hopefully, but may not happen right away as fast as I'd like it, of course. But we want a public dock. So it offers safe boat access for people with urgent need to get on and off island during those ferry outages when there is a delay in getting even the foot passenger ferry there. And even though they did a great job getting it out there, there was still a period of time where we didn't have an opportunity to get off island in that case. Expand the community opportunities for recreational boating. You know, why have this big expense if people can't enjoy it and make use of it? And enhance public access to waterfront activities. Almost everyone I talk with on island says, yeah, boy, we're kind of odd in the San Juans that we don't have a public dock, and everywhere else you go, for the most part, they've got something provides access to waterfront activities, and then provide safe access for boaters with limited mobility. A lot of folks on the island do need something simpler than scurrying up the rocks to get onto the beach. And unless you own a landing craft, I'm the only one on island who does. Makes it very difficult to get on and off island. So the scope in terms of our project as we're looking at it and what we're going to present to the Parks Department is this. A public dock would provide short-term docking. It would provide a pickup and drop-off area. It would provide access to waterfront activities once again. And the Parks Department wants all those to be a part of the community benefit, something that everyone can benefit from in Whatcom County. A public dock addresses the need for urgent access during ferry outages, especially. Gives us a place where we can load and unload people that are in need, that will have an easier way to get on vessels. Right now, the Bellingham fireboat can only land bow forward onto Lummi Island. And the only way we can get somebody on that is by laying an extension ladder from the beach onto the bow of the boat, then putting someone on a backboard and sliding them up into the boat. Not a real safe and efficient way of doing it. If we had a public dock, boy, they could just pull right up, people jump right in, be much easier. So one thing that we are emphasizing, we're not looking at a marina in any way, shape, or form. No overnight stays, limited hours of use, except for obviously emergency use. And so that's the project and project scope in terms that we're looking at presenting to the parks at this point. Some of the benefits of having this available is provide safe boat access on and off island during ferry outage, obviously. Enhanced deployment for fireboats, boat ambulance, et cetera, which I've already mentioned. It'll support options in case of evacuation. The work of many people on island for emergency needs. This just falls right in line with all of those types of processes. It'll provide a faster alternative for a temporary passenger ferry as well. The passenger ferry, instead of waiting to get everything set up, could come right up to this dock and load people on and off there, potentially. Obviously, there's a bunch of things that would have to be worked out countywide, but I'm sure between the Parks Department and Public Works, they could figure that out. Expand boat access to reach Bellingham when peninsula floods too. We've considered that. You know, there's a lot of good benefit to having a public dock available here on Lummi Island. Recreation benefits. Again, the Parks Department wants to hear how this will provide good recreational benefits, and it'll broaden a range of water-based activities, family-friendly site for fishing and crabbing. This, in my mind, would alleviate the people who are trespassing on the north side and the south side of the existing parks area that are using the rocks as a base for fishing. This would provide a platform for people to fish off of, which would be better than off the private owners' rocks. Provides access for kayaks, paddle boards, and etc. It'll provide access for visitors to ascend Saturday market, artist tours, etc., which, you know, the islanders want to have people coming out for that. And once again, the dock is not a marina, would not allow overnight stays. That's not the design of it. Docking would be limited to a few hours or just loading and unloading. And a lot of that's dependent upon the Parks Department and their decision. And I did want to make a point that this being north of the ferry terminal will alleviate one of the objections that Roland had that he expressed to me, and that is the increase in private boat traffic that would contend with ferry traffic, which I understand is what he's saying. And this would put it north of that traffic. So anybody that's trying to get back and forth to the mainland, they're going to go to Gooseberry Point, north of the ferry traffic, and limit the crossing of the ferry path. So that is one of the reasons why this is such an ideal site in our mind. Here's a picture. Those of you that know Lummi Island can see the designation right here. This parcel here owned by Whatcom County Public Parks. Beach Store Cafe is right here. And again, all of these things can be seen in more clarity on ourlummiisland.org, LICA community website. So please check that out for more information. This is kind of the idea that we have. This is another dock that was built by a local company. And we would like to see something like this, a dock that raises up and down out of the water as this one does. Not necessarily this design or built exactly like this. This is kind of ugly. I think they could do it in a prettier way, but nonetheless, the idea is that it would be a dock that would remain year round, but would have to be set in the water and removed from the water by a local community group, which there's many of us who would volunteer to be actively a part of this. And then of course, the gangway right here, which rises up and down with the dock, and then a pier. All of this being in the exact same place that the old ferry dock used to be, which provides a lot of benefits. There are pilings that are still existing that broke off when they were trying to be removed back whenever it was that they were removed. Talking with a pile driving company, they said those could be encased with new metal poles that will actually stop the spread of the contaminants from those creosoted logs. So I thought that was pretty neat. But following that same path, how far out it goes and such like that, obviously we want to be able to use it at a minus tide even. So it would still have to go out quite a ways. Those numbers determined by the Parks Department. So what we're doing next is we're going to have updates on what's going on. We're going to publicize committee progress and draft plans. All of that can be found on the LICA website. Once again, we're going to host an Island Town meeting on Sunday, February 6th, to present recommendations and gather feedback. We want the input of Islanders, of course, so please plan on attending that. We're going to give you a little more in-depth presentation than this. We're going to follow up with Islander survey to collect additional input. That'll be on Nextdoor, it'll be on Facebook, an opportunity to give input. And ultimately, we're going to make a presentation to Whatcom County Parks and Recreation, much more detailed than what I've given you tonight, but that's the overview of what we're doing. There actually is on the LICA website right now a survey for anybody that was impacted by a ferry outage. And there are some questions there we'd like you to answer and fill in. So please take time to do that. All right, that's it. Any questions?
I want to see Rich Hudson fill out your survey on that last outage. So I'm
Oh yeah, he'd really up the ante on price wise. I like that.
I do have a question, and it probably doesn't have an answer right now, but it's just a thought, which is wondering about enforcement of short-term dockage and so on and so forth, and etiquette surrounding if it's usable by 2 boats and there's 5 boats wanting.
Yeah, just like in the rest of the San Juans, there will be rules and regulations posted by the Parks Department. In our vision, and what the Parks Department wants is community involvement. So I would envision, and others, as we discussed about this, is community participation. Those who would be responsible for the rising and lowering of the dock, depending on the weather, helping in upkeep, anything that we could do to make it a mutual beneficial relationship between the Parks Department and us, kind of like LICA does now with the mowing of the parking area. So it would be a combined effort, and hopefully the Lummi Islanders would be the ones to do that. And common courtesy amongst boaters, you're always going to have those people that just don't have any, and there's nothing we can do about that. But suggest that, hey, be patient, wait your turn.
Rayma?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly jump in and say a big shout out to Chris Immer. Chris, you are the embodiment of community service here, both in when the ferry was out and you were ferrying people across in your boat, but even more so in picking this up and developing this project. It really begins to look like it has legs or has a dock. Secondly, so big thanks to you. Secondly, we've talked about this in previous LIFAC meetings, and technically this falls outside the scope of the committee, but we agreed, and I hope that the new committee will also agree to continue to have Chris and others come and keep us updated. It's an important thing to know about and to contribute to. So thanks again.
And I'm gonna jump in here. It looks like Dave Parker was wondering, are there similar docks on other islands like this? Is there a prototype?
Yes, there are similar docks. Matter of fact, that picture that I showed you of the dock, I'll go back to it. I believe is somewhere out in the San Juans. It was built by a company here based out of Seattle. And they said it's somewhere in the San Juans. I've never seen it with my own eyes.
Excuse me, Raymond, that wasn't my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My question was, how many public docks does Whatcom County Parks and Recreation own and operate at this time?
Thank you.
I don't have that answer. I could find out for you and let you know.
I think it's 0, but it'd be good. Would be worth knowing.
Yeah.
No, at least one.
One
Yeah.
less than we had up in Point Roberts for a big storm.
And there's also one at the park where the bridge goes across the lake. I can't remember. Is that Samish? There's a dock there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think so there's boat ramps and docks, and ramps are obviously cheaper to maintain. There was one up at one of the parks in Point Roberts and something to think about, and the maintenance on that was the storm beating it up. And it's a small boat launch thing, not something like this. But I really like this presentation. When you're presenting the fuller council for something like this, we try to think about getting Mike McFarland on board, the parks director, and you mentioned Roland. That's important. Yeah, and then pitching in terms of how's it going to get beat up, and what's the kind of long-term maintenance cost of that? Because we did lose one recently up at Point Roberts, and it wasn't replaced.
Oh, interesting. Todd, thank you for chiming in there. And just in
Yes,
case
thank you.
somebody came in later, Todd Donovan.
And it wasn't as good as structurally as sound as the one that was just presented to us. So.
Ooh, okay. But anyway, thank you, Todd, for re-upping to continue to represent, to be the liaison between LIFAC in the coming year and the county council going forward. I certainly appreciate that. You did a masterful job of meeting after meeting yesterday. Well done. Thank you.
I was curious, Chris, if I could ask a question. Just what guesstimated timeline would be for actually making this a reality?
Well, in talking with the Parks Department representative, this could easily take 20 years. Now, if it was me, 2 years, I'd have it done, but it's not up to me, so.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Chris, though, from where everything started 6 months ago, even to this presentation, these are giant steps forward that look like creating something that would be of great value and could make a long-term difference to the whole island. So my hat is off to you, and I thank you that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and this exact slide deck is available on the ourlummyisland.org website, correct?
Yes, and please, it's not just me. There is a whole team of us that are working really hard. We've been meeting since August. I think I've missed one evening. Everybody else has been there almost 100% of the time. I mean, it's an amazing amount of work that everyone's been doing. So I'm not alone in this by any means.
I'm excited. Thank you for the presentation. It dazzles me. I'm very hopeful. So thank you for that. Any other questions at this point or before we leave this topic? Oh, I see something from Lane.
He put this all together, by the way, all the PowerPoint.
Oh, Lane, it's lovely. So thank you very much. And do you want to tell us, for those who are not watching the chat, where to find this?
Yeah, so if you go to ouralumniisland.org, under community, you'll see a whole page with Public Doc Advisory Committee. And from that, you'll see links to all the references, all the meetings. You can watch Zoom, all the Zoom recordings of all the meetings we've had and our agendas and meeting notes. In addition to that, there'll be a PDF of this presentation with the slides and with some notes pages with a few more explanations of some of the key points. And you'll certainly watch, you'll get notification about attending the town meeting. As Chris said, that will be Sunday, February 6th. So watch for that. It'll be a webinar, kind of an interaction where you have a chance to do Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you all for the work on this, and I appreciate it very much. Okay. I'm very hopeful. Yeah, let's keep on keeping on. We can do it. So thank you. Mike, was there any update? I kept it on the agenda just so it didn't get lost, but I would assume we don't have an update on the ferry naming project at this point, that's not necessarily an active project at this point. Is that true? I can't hear you.
Yeah, in concert with Todd Donovan's concerns, that's in limbo until further notice.
Okay, but just for those.
It concerns me. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Todd, but I do remember you had concerns about naming the ferry before we.
Out of my mouth right now, but no. My only concern was just not having it as a public contest and as a vote phase. I think you're doing a great job on trying to get input from a lot of stakeholders, which is really good.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And again, almost as part of the handoff to the new committee, it's like, don't forget, Mike has made some inroads in collecting possible names for the replacement ferry. So don't forget. I'm going to move on to public awareness. We have a tome deadline for this.
Rama,
Yes, Charles.
shore power study.
Oh, shoot. Did I forget it again? Okay, I'm going to backtrack. How can I do that? Because I have spent time with Charles on this and I just jumped right over it. And there is actually, we have an action item ahead of us, and I hope we'll spill over the hour and a half just slightly, but this is important work. And I'm gonna just say big thanks to Todd Donovan for helping arrange a very significant presentation with Paul Sadhu, the county exec, and Tyler Schroeder, his assistant, on January 5th. And Charles, you did a masterful job. Do you want to bring everybody up to speed?
Well, thank you. I will just be very brief and give everyone the background to this. Last year in July, LIFAC was presented with Public Works presented fuel consumption data for the chief, and also one of the LA Bay Design Group estimates for fuel efficient consumption for the new ferry. And about the same time, we learned that the Council Committee on Climate Impact, the update of the Climate Action Plan, there were documents that showed that the chief was the largest carbon or greenhouse gas emitter in the county vehicle fleet. And not only that, but the new boat would emit even more greenhouse gases. So this became a concern, which led to a resolution which we passed in our August meeting, calling on the county to carry out a so-called shore power study. This is basically fact-finding because we realized, particularly by November, when the county council approved the climate action plan, and we saw that there was a call in the plan, a target front and center, 85% reduction in greenhouse gases in our county over the next 8 years. So going for a boat that was actually going to emit more carbon was moving the wrong direction. In that meeting, Todd Donovan kindly said he would join us and arrange a meeting that Rayma alluded to. And I prepared some PowerPoint slides to illustrate these points, which we're not going to show tonight, but which I'm happy to send to anyone who doesn't have them and would like them. And I'm putting my email address there in the chat. But basically, this in the meeting, I was particularly struck with how much our county executive knew about the ferry, both the big picture and the details. And he said, quote, "Definitely we want an electric ferry." He said, "Look, we thought we'll start with a hybrid, get the funding, start the fabrication." He said, "It's a matter of money and a matter of shore power. Let's find out, let's get the facts about the shore power." The problem is that it doesn't appear there's enough electricity available at either ferry terminal to charge the ferry. So at the end of the meeting, Satpal asked us to ask Rayma and me to go back to LIFAC and to draft a letter that would expand on our August resolution and explain the rationale and what exactly we're asking for. And this was a good time to do this because the county is going to back up its climate action plan by appointing a director to implement the plan, probably to sit in the Department of Public Works. And as Todd emphasized, we're not talking redesign of the ferry. I want to underscore that. We're going ahead with the ferry as designed. We're talking about, let's find out what the next steps are so we can get to electrification sooner rather than later. But the option of how fast to do that will be a question that the new LIFAC, I hope, will go into. So Mary, if you can just throw the letter up on the screen, please. And Rayma, maybe you want to lead us through any discussion or clarification.
I'd be happy to, yeah. And you should have, I think you all received a rough draft of it, but this is based on Satpal Sidhu's recommendation that it be addressed to both himself and the county council members. I think behind it, he is thinking that he might have some budget flexibility, and that would help grease the skids. But it also, I think, based on what he might bring to the party, we need to get head nodding from all of county council. Would you agree with that, Todd Donovan?
I don't know how, yeah, I totally agree with that. And first, back up, I just want to say, like, total respect for Mike and how he's doing the ferry naming here. Don't worry about it. I think you're doing a great job on that. My recollection of the meeting, I don't want to like say that anything was committed, but Satpal basically said, like, yeah, we can find the money to do this study. So the process of, I mean, Raymond Charles can correct me on that, but so I think there was a willingness to do that. And the budget process is the executive can bring a request to the council. That's usually, the council can at the last minute put stuff into the budget. So I think Satpal's asking that. So we redirected LIFAC instead of just asking the council for stuff to ask Satpal for the budget supplemental request, which he seems supportive of. So if you CC that, I mean, the main addressee would be the executive and the deputy executive, and then CC to council.
Oh,
I think the way it's going to proceed is then the executive will come to council with the supplemental budget request, which he seems sympathetic to. So I think job well done. I don't want to, I mean, fingers crossed, but and then trying to figure out like who the consultant would be that would do the shore power study. So yeah, I think you've described it. I think you're being a bit modest on how you're describing it.
Well, Todd, would you suggest then readdressing the letter? Is that what I'm hearing? Or
No, I think you have it. Okay. So dear executive and council, and these are all the things, these are the points that you and Charles discussed, and there was a really, really good PowerPoint presentation that's been provided to the deputy executive. But I think they're on board. So just, I would send it initially to the executive. Well, that's up to you, but because you're advisory to me. I'm not advisor to you, right? But I think the executive, my impression of the meetings, the executive was persuaded and was aware and is willing to find the money to do the study. And so however you want to do the letter, it goes to the executive and maybe CC'd to the council, rather than having, how do I put this? Budget stuffs happen much more immediately when there are requests from to the executive, and the executive puts them in the supplemental budget. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. And that's
Okay, can I just ask, do we, I will try to avoid asking advice, but you understand the processes better than certainly I do. Is it just a simple matter of changing the address line to CC everyone except county executive? Or do we need to add a reference to the January 5th meeting, or, for example?
Yes and yes. I mean, they won't forget it, but it'd be good to reference the meeting.
Okay.
Directed to the executive, and Tyler Schroeder, the deputy executive, who's also in on that meeting, and then CC to county council. And then it's then the ball's in the executive's court, who controls at least all the budget requests more than council does, and it'll come as a request to the council. And I'm pretty hopeful we would find a majority of the council supporting that, and then it would come to the council as a package of requests then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fine. Mary, do you want to show the second page just in case people would like to scroll down and see the rest of it?
And you should all, the current and future LIFAC members should have received the same draft.
Yeah, if you can go further down, there's more down below. Or, yeah, there we go. This is, we turned this into the attachment, which goes into more detail.
So I think, because we want to be aware of time here, what I hear is we would address it to the county executive and to his assistant, and CC the council. Would there be other modifications to be made here then?
Yeah, we would add a reference to the January 5th meeting.
Oh, okay.
Those are the two that I hear, but we should allow time for others to discuss.
Yes. Other thoughts, questions, comments?
Okay. Well, everybody was gleefully showing their shirts. I'm going to put my helmet on. I dug into, I have been saying that the ferry system has, the ferry that was designed by Elliott Bay Design Group and handed to this with very little public input and no public input from LIFAC. And no, one day this design appeared. There was no public input, no questions, no anything. I did some preliminary work on what the fuel was going to burn, and I came up with about 270 gallons. And then I went back instead of the 100, 209. And then I went back into what I'd done before. I'd forgotten about this. Elliott Bay Design said this ferry was going to take 750 horsepower to get to 10 knots. The Whatcom Chief takes 220, and the good old battleship Haiyu takes 360. Well, what does that tell you? What that tells you is the design of the hull is not efficient. And so when I went back and did this, I went back and I got the Caterpillar specs using the 750 horsepower that they told us. And as just a straight diesel boat, using the two engines, the Caterpillar C18s they put in there, and this would work them rather hard with it, I came out with 190.99, 191 gallons per day. Okay, then we got some things from Texas. We got some the designs from Texas, which look very, very similar to this one. And they had a diesel boat and it burned about 10 gallons an hour. They also got a diesel electric. This is no batteries, by the way. And it burned 27 gallons an hour. Same basic boat. There's some differences. I've got the designs of both of them. Fox managed to get the Texas people to send them to it. They're not much different. The basic hull design is the same. Slightly differences in spacing and other things like that. So I went through and using the 199.99, I found out that let's say if we use 25% fuel of the Texas ferries to charge these batteries, not 100%, that would be 121 gallons and a half gallons a day. Then, of course, we have the 5 to 40% of losses in battery upcharging and decharging. And that came out with the 45.56 a day. So when Elliott Bay first told us that these ferries were going to burn between 300 and 400 gallons a day, they weren't wrong. My numbers is 358.05 gallons per day. So if you're going to do that, don't put the electrical in it. Get a more efficient hull. Don't put the electrical in it. And when the time comes to put it in, and we have the feed, then go ahead and put it in. Otherwise than that, you're burning one heck of a lot of money. And at my explanation, my estimation is that this is going to be $2 a trip additional for this fuel burn, plus a horrendous amount of carbon and other pollution. We're too early on this. There is no electrical grid. Maybe someday there will be. Maybe it'll take 20 years. So it takes 20 years. So 20 years, you're burning that amount of fuel. This is not wise. So we need to review the design of this ferry. Since we lost the grant, I personally don't think we're going to get another grant. I think that was well explained by some people at the last meeting. We need to look at this and look at this hard. I don't think it is not an efficient boat. The systems are not efficient. The engines are going to wear out pretty darn fast. At least you need to go to the bigger ones. So in my opinion, we need to go through this. So I understand, Charles, you worked on good faith here, but I don't think that these numbers make it. And I think it perhaps could be damaging to our overall approach here.
Jim.
Unfortunately have the problem of being somewhat technical and rather detail oriented.
And Jim, you know that I totally appreciate that. And that's why you are a valued member here. It has been almost 2 years now since you met with some of these concerns face to face with Rich and with Liz. Rich, is it possible to put together another similar meeting on Zoom to go through some of this one more time?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Elizabeth and I have agreed to do that with Jim. And that quite honestly, there just hasn't been the time to do it, given the state of everything going on with the weather and everything else. Jim, we're happy to sit down and have that conversation with you again.
Because I think, Jim, this is a very persuasive argument, and you have continued to study it, and I think you're a valued member. And Rich, I won't be there probably at the next meeting, but others will be. And I encourage you to relook at this. It has been, I think, 2 years ago come March since we had such a meeting. So it might be time for another one.
I think it is. I'd like some other people to attend too, if we could.
That after January 31st, see what kind of meeting you can put together. Rich, if you can propose a date or two, and then see what's appropriate, especially if it's on Zoom. Again, it either has to be an open meeting or it worked before because there were just like 2 of us, I think, but I think it deserves taking another look at, and thank you very much. Is there further discussion on moving forward with LIFAC's approval of this letter with those changes that were outlined, that we would send it to the executive and Tyler Schroeder and CC the council and reference the January 5th meeting? Were there other suggestions? I'd like to, if there are none, and I can't see everybody in my little view here, are there other amendments or changes before we take a vote on whether or not we approve this letter going forward? I don't see any other hands raised. Can we take a vote?
I'd like to read it again and be very careful with it. At the way it is right now, I would not vote for it. I think that we have to, I'm sorry, Charles, I know you did it. You tried really hard and you had, but I don't think you've got good information in some parts of it. And I respect your work, by the way. And the thing is that we need to look this in more depth, because I have a feeling this electrification that everybody thinks is going to happen is not, with the loss of the power plants, with possible loss of dams. We're going to be in trouble just keeping our lights on.
Well, Jim, thank you for raising that concern and question. So you would not approve the letter, or you would approve the letter?
Call
a vote.
Okay.
Can I just respond to Jim? Jim, thank you for your kind remarks, and I've enjoyed working with you, and I'll miss working with you on LIFAC going forward. I think that this is just fact finding. This is not building anything, and it's not altering the current design. So I don't think that it will interfere in any way with your discussions going forward with Public Works. It is, some of the question could be answered just simply by the county talking with Puget Sound Energy. And so far as I can determine with working with engineers here on the island, that it may be possible actually through, and the details are in the letter, to get the power to the dock at a reasonable cost. But we need to, someone needs to sort of develop this idea further. Anyway, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate them.
Okay. I'm going to take a roll call on whether or not to approve this letter as is with the changes that we've articulated here. Mike?
Do we need a motion or no? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I think I moved, but is there a second? Maybe.
I'll second.
Okay. So Charles, you would?
I second.
Okay. All right. Mike, would you weigh in, please?
Yes.
Okay. Judy?
Yes.
Thank you. And let's see, I would vote yes, moving this forward.
And I vote yes.
And Charles, you would. Okay. So this letter is approved with those modifications that we've articulated, and thank you all. And Jim, again, thank you for continuing to raise those concerns. I appreciate it. Yes.
I couldn't hear Judy. How's the vote? What's the vote? 4-1 or 5 or 3-2?
2,
Yes.
4.
I can't hear
Yes,
you.
Mike.
I think it.
Yes, Mike. Yes.
Judy was yes. Yes.
Thank you.
I gotta go. Can I just say something real quick?
Yes, Todd.
So I guess this is the last meeting I'll be on with you and Charles. It's just the 2 of you leaving the board right now.
That's right.
Okay, it's I think been 6 years with me. I think I might have started on LIFAC and you all were here. So massive thanks to the work y'all been doing, and to the new members coming on the board. We had an embarrassment of riches of people applying to be on this, which says an amazing thing about LIFAC. So I'll miss you. I'm sure I'll see you on other things.
Right.
Everybody else, I'll see you. What is it? Every third Wednesday, or so you got stuck with me for another term. So
And I'm thrilled. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you for all you've done for helping us along with this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, so one of the
You're going
things I
very
would
slow getting
say was-
somewhere at the end of the day, right? So, right.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Okay, and so the letter is approved as with those modifications. Thank you. And very briefly, my understanding is, Mike, will you send around a draft? You were going to draft a letter for the tome that is due for Friday.
I have an article written and I'll add some thoughts from tonight and he'll.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if you can all get back any comments to Mike by late Thursday so he can hand that in on Friday. So look for an email from Mike with those suggestions. And I appreciate your taking that on this month. Usually the meetings only last an hour and a half, but we had a little bit more to cover tonight. So thank you for bearing with us. And I'm gonna, unless I jumped and left off another agenda item, I'm gonna ask that we move on to public comment. And I'm gonna start with actually MJ, you've had your hand up. Did you have some comments to make?
Thank you, ma'am. Actually, I did. First of all, I wanted to thank Todd for participating with us. That's been fabulous.
Yep.
Also, I wanted to thank you and Charles for all of the time that you've spent and everything that you've done. And just, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's not a great connection, but we can hear you.
Okay, great. I wanted to be sure that you guys, were totally welcomed, and also, thanks for all the things that you've done, because this is a long haul. The one other little bit of stuff is that, and I'm doing this in other meetings that I have for work. We have Rich, and then we're gonna have Rich Fry. So I'm gonna suggest that we, you all, all y'all, decide that maybe it's Richie and Rich, so that we can distinguish between the two all the time. Because that's a problem. I have some issues about the dock, but I'm not gonna go there. And the other thing is, I want to thank you so much for the work on the, I was the whiner about the Met station at the dock, and it's taken for effing ever to get this in place, but I think it'll be really cool if they ever get it going. But it's been years, and I think we need to get it going sooner than soon.
Thank you.
So anyway.
For the
that's all.
record, Mary Jane, when you say the dock, you mean which dock?
Oh, at the ferry dock, that we had it, years ago, that you could get onto the website for the dock, and you could see what the weather was and the wind and stuff. And yeah, and the story I got, and Raymond got the same thing, was that the laptop quit, and so instead of just replacing the laptop, all of a sudden we have all this, they got all this money and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. It's like taking how many years, Raymond? 2, 3?
Just to clarify, it wasn't just the laptop. The whole weather station disintegrated and was no longer functioning. And the laptop followed suit quickly after. It just was all shot. So just
Okay. Thank
and
you.
I wanted to also thank you for the somebody put something up there little can or something. So, you know, just to let me know that they were thinking about it. That was a couple of years ago. Thank you so much for that. Anyway, so it would be really, it's really cool. I mean, I live up in the hill, and it'd be really nice to know what's going on down there. And so do you want to be called Richie, or do you want to be called Rich and we'll call the other one Richard?
Well, call me anything you want.
Oh, you don't want to know that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I've
Hey,
already been down that road with myself, so yeah, no.
thank you, MJ. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
Got it.
Thank you for participating. I appreciate it. I'm happy for your presence. Steve Thomas, I don't know if I sent it to the other LIFAC members, but you had 2 suggestions. Would you like to take a few minutes and bring those forward one more time? Hopefully, yeah, Mary, you might be able to put up the 2 emails that Rich put in writing. Or I'm sorry, Steve put in writing. Thank you. So take it away, Steve. Do you want to just take a couple minutes and?
Sure. Hi, I'm Stephen Thomas. I've been an island resident since 1976, over 45 years. And I'm a designer, builder, contractor. And as part of my career, I was a project manager for numerous places. And one was Alpha Technologies in Bellingham, where I was installing communication power systems around the country in right-of-ways construction. So I just was thinking about these ideas, and I thought I'd share them. And one of them is regarding funding, and I'll just read it here. Considering the recent flooding and future flooding of the Lummi Nation, I propose that it is in the interest of Lummi Island and the Lummi Nation to have a viable new ferry that can transport people, supplies, services, and medical transport in an emergency. When the time comes that the Lummi Nation is isolated due to flooding and needs access to the mainland, the Lummi Island ferry could go to Bellingham, thus serving both the Lummi Island and the Lummi Nation. Therefore, if Whatcom County and the Lummi Nation apply for funding jointly for the new ferry, it would enhance the opportunities to obtain financing to serve both communities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And, you know, I think it's interesting. I'm wondering if it might be appropriate based on what happened yesterday to even try to include the planning commission or planning committee on this, since they now have a representative from Lummi Nation. If that would be a good place to start. Any other suggestions for how this might be moved forward?
Well, I just, you know, one of the things that prompted this was I had read where when the Nooksack had flooded, that the Lummi Bay market was cleaned out quickly because people had no other access to food. So we are going to be in this situation again. And as I mentioned to you, I'll call it the Polly Hansen rules, that the reservation, the Lummi Nation, you know, is going to be flooded and won't have access off. And so the ferry could serve us, but it could also serve the Lummi Nation, and joint funding together, I think, could be beneficial for both of us.
Thank you. And Steve, your second suggestion?
Yes, and then I was thinking about parking and considering the recent flooding, oops, wrong page, regarding the limited ferry parking during dry dock, Whatcom County can establish a temporary parking zone for the 2 or 3 weeks of dry dock using the existing 60-foot county right-of-way along Haxton Way. Starting at the Haxton and Ruth Road intersection, the county could establish a one-way traffic down the hill on Haxton to Finkbonner, left north on Finkbonner, and west on Ruth and back to Haxton. That would be a one-way block completing complete access to Lummi Bay Market and Gooseberry Boat Launch, telephone company, emergency vehicles, etc., would be insured. In essence, there would be a one block roundabout with one-way traffic. Dry dock parking would be on the north side of the Haxton and angled in the 60-foot right-of-way. The one-way road and angled parking would share the 60-foot right-of-way. So it's basically, the county said they own the right-of-way for Haxton. They have about 5 other different types of jurisdictions on roads, but the Haxton is a county road with a 60-foot right-of-way. And so I'm just proposing to actually use some of that for the parking, and could still have one-way traffic looping around the store and up Finkbonner to Ruth and back out again. So it doesn't interfere with traffic, but it would create some square footage for parking.
Okay. Thank you for that, and thank you for both of those ideas. And we'll see if it will be part of the public record. It will be part of the minutes of this meeting, and it'll be interesting to see if we get some forward movement on those 2 ideas. I saw. Thank you, Steve, for bringing both those ideas forward. Bill Sager, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, and I'll be real quick. I appreciate first, thank you again to those council members or the committee members who are leaving. I've had the pleasure of actually attending these meetings for 4 months now, and really enjoyed each one of them. Also, congratulations to the appointees. That was quite a council meeting last night. It was interesting to sit through it all and then listen to the approach for the appointments. And what I wanted to do was really just formally offer all of my services that I can to assist in the background in any way. I'm pretty much amazed at how much I hear Mary's name being used for how much she's facilitated everything. I, being a new Islander, about 2 years now, I've got over 35 years of tech experience. I certainly can help out in any way that really will help you guys do your job. And you guys doing your job and successful is what I want, obviously. That's what we all need. So anything I can do to facilitate, help, any fashion, you're going to see my face. I'm going to be here. So anything I can do.
Thank you for that kind offer. What's the best way to reach you, Bill?
Email or text, or we'll start with email. I know some of y'all have my emails, and we can certainly hand out further contacts. I look forward, Judy. I'll reach out to you on that list server. Anything technically that I'm not aware of how to do, I'll go figure it out. I will mention the one side note is, I know there was a lot of discussion this morning about hybrid meetings. Please do not underestimate how hard that problem is to solve. It really is. I have been through it in business and my companies, and it is not an easy way to just still provide the access that we've come to enjoy with the remote viewing and the participation, but then as well as Jim's concerns of being able to do what you need to do in a face-to-face. You even heard Councilman Donelman said, they haven't figured it out either. So it's something that you have to experiment with. You have to try. I see Mary shaking her head. I don't look, Mary, again, when you go to look at that, anything I can do to help,
I'll be in touch.
All right. But I I think this is the best way that I can actually provide some community service to our lovely community. And like I said, take me up on it, please.
Bill, thank you so much. That's what everybody needs to hear this year going forward. And I am grateful that we have been able to Zoom on Mary's account. Thank you all. I personally just returned from New York City and I'm quarantining, I have been exposed big time. So thank you all. And thank you for a great 6-year term on LIFAC, and Charles and I will be signing off at the end of the month. Charles, thank you for your service. And I think, Rich, you are wonderful in how you have been available, and I'll miss working with you. I'll miss having a reason to call you all the time. So thank you very much, everybody. Mike, last minute.
Rama, Mike Skihan here.
Oh, hello. I'm sorry. I didn't see you, but hold on. Mike McKenzie was trying to talk, but was muted here.
Is there another comment?
Oh,
Yes.
Public comment? Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Mike Skihan, did you have a public comment?
Yes, we're here in Reno, Nevada, headed home. And I want to say publicly, thank you, Rama and Charles, for your dedication, your openness to accept ideas. I also share Jim's skepticism of the fuel numbers. That really needs to be looked at. And the importance of climate change. I hope the new committee formulation will take this seriously and address it, support the letter, and continue the good work that Charles and Rama and others, the committee, have taken to carry this along. It's okay to have studies that answer questions, and I think that's where we're at. Thank you.
Mike, thanks for joining us here tonight. And Charles.
Yeah, I just want to add appreciation to all of my friends and colleagues on LIFAC. It's been a wonderful experience. And earlier I intended to thank Jim Ross, along with Mary Ross. Jim has worked for several years with me on developing a spreadsheet to actually estimate the electricity consumption of the new vessel. So I thank you very much for that. And also Mary, of course, for making Zoom possible, because it's great to meet. I think all of us would love to meet in person. On the other hand, during Zoom, we can have people join us from New York or Missouri or Portland or wherever, and that's enriched our meeting too. So thank you all. I'll be very curious where this goes next.
Thank you all for a great meeting. Final word, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Charles, and Rama for being. I guess it's been a great time. I would like to address something to Steve here. Your parking plan, I agree with, but I don't know what will happen with it. But I made a comment time ago that nobody picked up on, was to make the Gooseberry Dock big enough to handle one of the state's 64 car ferries, of course, only at high tide, because the Whatcom chief, as those of us who rode it to Bellingham, I think the last time was in the 1990s, and those trips were absolutely miserable. And then the new ferry they've designed is rather lightly framed. And so I don't think it will handle the abuse of that run. It'll be pounding all the way. But anyway, so that is an opportunity. The dock, they're only 65 feet wide, so it wouldn't be that big of a stretch for the local one to land in it. So that would be an option we might be able to do, because at the winter times, the state is not one of those boats. They've got it tied up.
Okay,
So,
thank you, Jim. Mike, final word. We got to sign off here. Everybody's over our 2-hour limit. Final word, Mike.
Just underscoring the thanks to you and Charles for all your work. I think everybody may not be aware, but when I tallied it up, Rama, you and I've worked a combination of over 20 years on this together on these ferry issues dating back to days of Plick, and Jim was on the original ferry task force. So we're losing 12 years of immediate service between you and Charles, and it's been a passion for a long time. And thanks a million, and I hope to see you on here going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Good night.
Night.
Right.
Sorry.